This is Motivation. I'm Laura Joy Kingwell.
And I'm Chrissy Van. We're two dreamers on two wheels inspired by our community.
And celebrating the voices we're just lucky enough to discover along the ride. So if not already, like, subscribe, follow along, do what you gotta do to not miss an episode.
Hitting the road for a motorcycle trip longer than a day or so means you're strapping on saddlebags, tank bags, gear is stacked, and rope to the old sissy bar with extras and essentials to make sure you got what you need, when you need it, when it counts. When you know you're heading into a journey of unknowns for any length of time, we need the space of a saddlebag and the strength of a sissy bar. Similarly, we find this in the strong connections of family and friends. They are what help get us through this wild and crazy thing we call life. As we head into another year of unknowns and potential physical disconnect, today's episode, we're talking about the importance of connection, support, and comfort of others when you're traveling on the longer rides ahead. This is the Motivation.
I think we've never been more acutely aware of how much we're affected by a lack of connection, or how important connection really is in our life, until the past 2 years took place, especially the first year, because we hadn't adapted in any way whatsoever. And all of a sudden have these restrictions around how you're around the people that you love, the way in which you get to interact with them. It really just kind of stopped everyone in their tracks as far as understanding that need. And it is an actual need, because we're hardwired to connect. We're hardwired to be around one another and to see and to touch and feel and be felt, like the feeling of being seen. And it's so much so, like, it actually reduces your stress and has an effect on your actual immune system. It's actually, isolation is more consequential to our health than smoking, which is nuts when you think about that. And this next year, I say year because it feels like every time I move into fall or winter, it's like the new year. But I more or less mean like that season where things slow down and we don't have quite the desire to be out and about as much. But even more so with COVID still very much a thing, that we're headed into fall and we're headed into this kind of the unknown again around what the restrictions are going to look like, how much we're going to be able to be connected to friends and family again. And more than ever, we're got to be really on top of it and proactive and aware of how important that connection is, and get creative of how we're going to go about doing it, because our mental health is like, it's at stake more than ever.
It's absolutely at stake. And you hit it right there. I mean, studies have shown loneliness is a killer as well. And I think that we all had a glimpse of that. Even if you had the most active social life, with the experience that we just went through, it got taken away from us with no choosing of our own. But it's exactly as you say, in regards to figuring out how to purposely and with purpose plan out our social interactions. Because another consequence of the pandemic and the restrictions and all that we went through is we realized we live in this time, and hilarious as it's called, social media, this medium that is allowing us to be social with each other. But how many times, even though we're interacting in these spaces, do you actually end up feeling a lack of connection, a greater disconnect to our community, a stronger sense of loneliness in these spaces? These mediums that have been designed to really unite people have almost flooded us in a way where we have access to everything and start to question, well, why do I still not feel satiated in regards to social connections in this life? And the reason being is because a lot of times we're going into those spaces without any sense of purpose. There's no why behind it, as we say. You're just mindlessly scrolling, you're mindlessly commenting. And it's so easy to get lost in those and all of a sudden feel like the world is going on round and round and everyone's doing this and that together, and feel absolutely not a part of it at the exact same time.
Yeah, when you go onto social media and you're trying, and that's half the reason that the addiction is there, is that need to connect and be a part of something and not miss out on anything. But if I go on, what are those, like, what did we always do? The house party things where we'd all go
Yes.
online and be all in a room and visiting and stuff. I feel very different when I go on the house party and see 5 of my friends and we actually have these conversations through the computer essentially, versus if I'm going to their page on social media to check out what they've been doing or even watching a live feed of them. I don't feel connected. I don't walk away feeling as though that part of my, tank's been filled, and that essentially that part of us that needs and is hardwired for connection. It's like being hungry and going and eating cake versus going and eating vegetables.
That's such a good comparison.
Might have put food into your body, but you don't feel any better. And you've actually done more damage than good in the long run, because there is lots of studies around how when people have been online, they feel actually more lonely. Not only do you feel not connected, but you actually feel more disconnected and more lonely than if you would have just spent some time with your damn self, even, like reading a book or playing an instrument or just kind of sitting, whatever. But
dancing in the kitchen.
But it's that thing of, you have to have this full awareness, and everyone kind of does to a certain level, for sure. Everyone knows that we need each other and they feel better when they're with friends. But to actually look at it as like the same as eating a healthy diet, or the food that you're eating, or the movement that you're getting in a day, we got to take this connection. And like we use for the example of your motorcycle, if you get on the road and you take your trip and it starts to pour rain, but you didn't take the proactive time and the thought process to pack your rain gear. I've seen my friends do this, and you're cold, and it's not an experience where if you were just that proactive of knowing if this happens. So you don't know what the next year is going to look like. And it could be a lot of beautiful things. There could be a lot of hardships. We know that here's the other thing, is that we're all worn down to a certain extent from the past 2 years. So there's a certain level of wear and tear that's already taken place on us. There's a certain level of resiliency that we have as well, and that's beautiful. But there is a certain amount that we have to understand that we're not working from quite the tank full that we were 2 years ago. People are exhausted. They're fed up. We're fighting left, right, and center about any and everything online. And there has to be a certain level that you understand that you're like, you got to pack your bike. You got to pack your life, because we're headed into some more tricky times. And who it is around you that you really feel like, if your bike breaks down, who's the person to call on? If it pours rain that day, what are you doing so that you are equipped as much as possible with that support team and system around you, that you can get through it much easier and much more convenient and comfortable than going at it alone, just sopping wet and freezing cold for no reason.
Which is the worst.
It is the worst.
It's the absolute worst. I really like 2 things that you said there, and that was the awareness and being proactive when it comes to our social connections. Something that hits home in this conversation for myself, and a good example, and Lori, I know you've moved a ton as well, but when I came out to Vancouver, I didn't really know anybody, and I'm a very social person. And for the first little while, although I was putting myself out there and networking a ton, you end up having those going through the motions relationships. And there is value to those. It's like when they say a reason, a season, or forever, or whatever that saying is. But a lot of those people became the season because they weren't my people. They weren't those people that you can call in the middle of the night when the bike breaks down proverbially in your life. They aren't the people that you call 10 minutes before you start a podcast because you're feeling really overwhelmed with your day and just need to have a good cry. Yes, 1,000% happened. Should have done it on Zoom so that we were recording. But you have to put active effort to find your community and find those people that you do want to have by your side when the going gets rough. And it's not looking for friendships out of a selfish, what am I going to get out of it? And making sure that they're going to support me when things are going awry. It's about having that deep connection and bond with another human being that's navigating this life with their own sense of circumstances and their own sets of problems and their own sets of joys, and celebrating all of those sad days and good days with them, and knowing that you ultimately can do the same. There is a power in moving through life, finding those people. But it is something where you have to be aware. Are the people that I have around me ones that are serving and adding lividity to my life? Are they adding value? Not to say that a human being wouldn't have value, but you all know the types that sometimes you keep around in your circle and aren't necessarily healthy for you, or it's just not a productive relationship, but no one wants to say anything, or you just ghost each other. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about finding those really true, strike you in the heart love and compassion for another human being, and knowing that you would step up and be offering the same to them.
And not every friend you're going to go to for the same thing. You're going to have friends that you kind of make a mental note around of, like, this person seems to really know how to show up in moments of like emergent times, when like shit's hitting the fan and you're like, I'm crashing and burning, I am not well. You'll have amazing friends that would just hit the panic button if you called them with that call. And you also then have amazing friends that would be able to show up in that like calm and that anchor that's able to really give you some guidance or some clarity that you're really struggling with in that moment. But then you'll also have a friend that you're just really feeling down. And if you can kind of make an awareness around, or even write it down of, this is the person that I get a good laugh with. This person will just take me to another place right now where I need to go, where I can just release and laugh. Because even when you're going through those really difficult times, or, it all feels too much, doesn't mean you can't find a moment to smile and to just find a little pocket of relief to then get you through that next stage of that really difficult moment. And sometimes too, your friend that was there and was that support system, that can sometimes ebb and flow, not because they become a bad friend, but because they're going through their own heavy stuff. And so they don't have the capacity. I know for even myself, in ways that I've been able to always be that friend for my friends, this past couple of years, I've had to step back in that to some degree, because the weight at which my own personal stuff that I'm navigating, it's like I only have so much capacity before I'll just go under, or I won't even be able to give a good reflection, because I'll end up being a projection. I'll put, sort of thing. I'll take all of my stuff and try and be there in a way that serves me, not them in the end, sort of thing. So even just kind of going into this next year of getting more deliberate around making actual notes, even if you need to, so you can actually go to it. What do I need today? Do I need to laugh? Do I need to vent? Do I need to hit the panic button? So which friend do I go to? Who's next to laughing? Who's got, holy shit button beside their name? And it doesn't mean you just have to go to them for only those things, but at least that's your I'm not going to grab a blanket off of my sissy bar if I need to get my rain gear out of my saddlebags. Like, what does the weather call for? What does the emergency call for? I'm not going to get out my tent if I have a flat tire, So, but they're all needed at different times in that trip. And I think that's also a big part of it is just kind of being aware of who you have in your circle, what their strengths are, what they bring to your life, and also yourself as well,
Well, yeah. And you touch on a great point there in addition to that, because it is self-reflection as well, figuring out how we can show up for others and where those strengths are. And when we do have the capacity to be able to be a support system for someone else, showing up for them and doing just that. That is what the beauty of friendship is. And it's something so special in life when you find those people. It's something where we look at the world. Sometimes I'll do this practice in my mind where I'll go on my scooter ride to work, or if I'm going by foot, and I'll look at all the people and I almost imagine them as if they have these little speech bubbles over their heads where I can see all the things in their brain. And I do this because it reminds me that they have their own worries, their own joys, all the things that race in their minds day to day. Every single human has that. And I think really what Lori is speaking to is an essence of compassion for our fellow humans and expecting that same respect and compassion back. And when it comes to discovering those people that you can really peel the layers off and truly be yourself, because I don't think that we can expect people to show up for us or vice versa if we aren't really showing up for them as our authentic, true, stripped down selves. Like that are that version of yourself and that version of themself are the ones that create the bonds where you can have building blocks for a support system. And I kind of have a funny way of determining who those people are for me. And it's the weirdness test. I always know I've hit that if I can be perfectly my like 100% weird human self in front of them. And I'm like, okay, like this is somebody that I know I can rely on in life because they've seen all of me and all my quirky ways of what it means to be a human being. And there's something so valuable for that because as you do say, we don't know what's around the corner in our lives. And not only do we want our support system around us to get us through when times are just so heavy, because no person should be expected to carry a life burden all on their shoulders and that is it. But it's also so incredible to have your support system and be that support system when people are going through those moments of joy, when they're on the ride and you're saddlebags and sissy bars are dry and you're cruising along and it's the best feeling. Well, all your gear is still along for that ride in those moments. And I think that there's something so incredible about that, to have those human beings that take us through every dip and every valley. And as you say, you're not always going to bring the same gear for the same ride. And that's just the reality of it. You have a mosaic of options if you're so lucky in this lifetime.
And just like you said about, it's not just for the turbulent times or the necessity needs that's where these support systems and these connections come in. My God, how unfun if the only part of your relationship is just like horrific moments or like us crying or like, oh, you know what I mean? Oh my God.
I have to go see my friend today.
Yeah. Oh,
just don't know if I can take it.
Yeah. The beauty of why we know that we can show up in, the word that you love to use, and I love it, is mosaic version of ourselves. But we also get to say, let's be really proactive again. Because we did it right when COVID really took place and we had all these restrictions and we got so creative so fast, right? Like everyone was making dates. Like I know even my girlfriends that were super tight still from high school, but we don't get to see each other often. We were getting on all Zoom all together, and all my different friend groups we were doing this. We were making it a point, and it was just beautiful. But I've noticed over this past winter, the one that we just finished with, that didn't happen as much. It was almost like we were exhausted by it, and we didn't think about the importance of really taking the time to plan again. And I've thought about it, of how much I really want to make that a priority, of like reaching out to all my friend groups and saying, let's do that again. Let's do that once a month where we all hop on and we see and we laugh our asses off and we reminisce about shit. Because again, that's where it's going to be the difference of setting yourself up for filling your tank, so that when the shit does kind of happen and it starts to drain that part of yourself, you've got a fuller tank to work with. Then you're not running on fumes, just trying to keep above the line sort of thing and just not crash and burn. Because that's just where we are, where the restrictions are going to come in again. And the sooner that we start really enjoying one another the same way we have kind of over summer, but we just get creative again, the rest is going to feel very doable, because it's going to feel like we have that support right there when we need it. Because I just saw you Monday and we were just talking about the stupidest shit on earth, and now we're going to talk about some serious shit, and that's the beauty of friendship and support.
Well, Lori, bring up a really good point too, two of them actually. One being obviously how easy it is for us to go inward. I think it's very relatable when we get into those ruts of social disconnection where all of a sudden you've just Netflixed and chilled your life away and you start even turning down invitations, which is a crazy thought considering for so long and the restrictions, as you say, the social options were so minimal. But on top of that, it's really what you're touching on is nurturing those relationships as well when you don't need anything from them, because friendships do need to be nurtured. There's something, it's a bond that can grow over time. And if you're not investing in that and being proactive, as you say, in that, it's unfortunately something that can dissipate over time. Now, I get it. And I have many of them. I have friends that I don't talk to for decades and years. And the minute you connect, it's so special and the best time ever. And you're laughing about old stories. And that's fantastic. But would you be calling the friend from 20 years ago when times are tough or to celebrate a victory in your life? Probably not. And so those regular people that you're hoping to show up for and to have them show up in another way, it has to be nurtured. It has to be invested in. And a lot of times when you find yourself in spaces thinking, so-and-so hasn't reached out anymore, so-and-so's not doing this, it's usually time as well to do a bit of self-reflection. Have I brought anything to the table in this space? Have I created or put an olive branch out to have this moment of reconnection? If you don't nurture the friendship, it's just like if you were me and had a plant, well, eventually that plant, it's not going to look so good. It's going to be really yellow and it's going to need water. And that's not the one you want on display, people.
And being really honest of your needs, like your personal needs going into this next fall and winter. What do you need? Because each one of us shows up, or our needs in those more difficult moments, or our upkeep looks very different. Like I'm an extreme extrovert, but I'm an extreme introvert. I need a lot of alone time. When I'm present and I'm with you, I am 100% in. But when I am home and I'm on my own, I'm 100% in. And so sometimes I don't need a lot of communication and upkeep to keep kind of my tank. I get these pockets, and that is phenomenal. But other people, they need consistent connection. And so I've had friends that have said that to me of like, this is what I need. And I've just been able to say, I can't meet you in that. I can meet you here. And then we have an understanding. But prior to that, there was these feelings of like, well, maybe she's mad at me, or maybe I get texts and like, is something wrong? Did I do something? What? No. What would you possibly have done? And they'd laugh. I don't know. I just didn't hear from you for a couple of weeks, and you're like, oh, okay, but no, and so there's just those things of the more that if you're feeling as though you're taking on things that a storyline, if you will, that seems very real to you around how other people might be thinking, like your friends or family around you, or when you talked about, reflecting, Chrissy, if you take a look at what your needs are, and the better you can communicate those to your support system, then they can say where they're at, what their needs are, because we don't have the same love languages. And so a lot of times too, there's a lot of sensitivities that are taking place and that will continue, and vulnerabilities. And so that's also something to consider for yourself, and communicate it to who you need to, so that they can show up in the ways that you need to. And if they can't, they'll let you know, and not to take it personally.
You reminded me of a previous episode where I believe it was Brene Brown that you quoted, which was to be clear is to be kind, and to be unclear is unkind. Yes. And that's such a good example of it, because it's exactly it. We don't all communicate in the same way. We don't all have the same needs. We've got introverts, extroverts, everything in between, the hybrid, which you and Lori, you and myself are very similar in that regard. But having those conversations, because there's nothing worse when something builds in your mind and you run away with those stories, and then all of a sudden you're mad at them, but they didn't do anything at all. You've created it. And the mind's a funny place, so it can absolutely do that to you. So having those conversations and just being open and communicating is so important, so that you don't run up against those instances. Also, if you're listening, one thing that I'm thinking about as well, because I have a really close family member that's like this, that is extremely introverted and has always been someone that has one or two close people. And that is a tank filler. You know, not everyone needs to have a wide array of social friendships in their life to have their tank full. That is okay. But thinking of the same person, they've relocated to a new destination in the heart of the pandemic and haven't been able to go out and make those connections. And then where they are, things are kind of opening a little bit, but there's that fear of, where do I start? How do I find my people? And one thing I do want to say, if that is you, because my journey was different. I was extremely social when I moved to a new city, and I was just looking for my people, and it took a bit of a journey, but the number one recommendation I have is to connect with a community that resonates with you and connect with a hobby that makes your spirit fly, because it's such a great element to have in common with someone to start building those friendships and building your network of social interactions. And you'll be really surprised that not everyone that's there is going to be your person or your people, but I imagine you're probably going to find someone that you click with if you go that route. And I just wanted to touch on that because I know you and I are really social beings, but for some people it's such an added hurdle to put themselves out there, and it can be a lonely life if you don't take that step out of your comfort zone. But if you do, and what can be found there, it makes your heart sing. Honestly, I am always practicing gratitude. And I think, honestly, out of the pandemic, when I reflect on the relationships that I have, because of how volatile the world has been, it has meant that I have gotten beyond real with people in my life about so many things, that those connections and bonds have just heightened to a level that I honestly didn't expect. It took me by surprise to discover that in my adult life, because statistically, a lot of people don't find or build a lot of new adult friendships. But knowing that that is out there, if you put in the work and the effort, changed my life. It absolutely changed my life.
It is. It's think about going, it's just like adult camp. You just go
Yeah.
there, you're all on your own, freaking the shit out, but you walk out with 10 new friends after after the week. You're just like, it's amazing. Amazing.
Same
Well,
person that's like, I wouldn't go to camp. It would be stressful.
like I never went to camp. I
No,
don't tell
start
her
small.
talk about- Yeah.
Start
So
small.
I think that's a good lead in to getting down to our motivation.
Maintenance, motivation, maintenance.
Motivation. My voice was cracking. Motivation.
I had such a emotional day. It felt so good to hit that high note off key.
Christy and I have both spent a lot of today in tears, and that is the truth, my friends. That is the truth. And we've been randomly reaching out and being each other's support system in many ways today. So this is just one more example of why it's so important to have that support system. Even like our recording right now, we were saying it's always feel like a therapy session, and you really do talk about this stuff out loud to somebody. And you know, for right now, Chrissy on the other end of this is that somebody that's hearing and seeing me and being engaged, and someone that I love. And that feels good. And so even if it's just, if you're feeling like you needing to connect, please don't look for that on social media. Please make that phone call to a friend, even just like find an old friend you haven't talked to in 10 years. Imagine how amazing and how excited they would be to like randomly hear your voice. Hey, like haven't talked to you in years. Oh my God. So yeah, let's do some motivation maintenance. That wasn't mine. That sounded like it, but it wasn't.
Right? I was like, that's actually a fantastic one. I'm gonna steal it.
Not mine. Chrissy, you take off. That wasn't a thing. You take off, Chrissy.
Take off into the sunset with your saddlebags and sissy bags.
Yeah, you take it away. You take it away.
So my motivation maintenance is going to be an exercise that you can do tomorrow. And it's honestly just about building a deeper connection. So I want you to pick someone that you interact with daily, but actually don't dig below the surface. Now, I understand that some people are still working remotely. So this could be your barista if you're going for your coffee. Or if you are in a workplace, it could be the person that you're always like, hey, Bob, how you doing? And just walk by and that's it. And I want you to stop. And I want you to go a few levels deeper with them. Maybe it's 3 personal questions, how their family's doing, how their week has been, but genuinely waiting for the response and engage with them. And it's just about having an experience with another human being that I guarantee you're both going to leave and be like, oh, that was nice. Because we get so practiced in just going by. And I know that we're talking about building your personal support system, but my exercise is really about peeling back your layer. Stop being so practiced and just going about your routine. Just peel back a layer with some other human being and have one goddamn moment of real human connection. Because at the end of the day, it has been an absolute shit show for everybody on top of all the other life shit for almost the last 2 years now. And we are seeing so much hate and unkindness and all of that. So to have a kind interaction with another human being that goes below the surface, even if they take nothing from it, you will. You will. Those little moments of connection, think how good it feels to even just smile at a stranger. Now imagine if you went a few layers deeper. That's mine.
Yes, Quine. I love that. So mine is inspired by my mom and her sisters. They talk every single morning for even if it's like 10 minutes and they Zoom with each other and touch base. This started with COVID and it's just something really sweet I think they do. So my spin-off on it is choose 1 or 2 friends. I guess you could technically have as many friends as you wanted within it, but almost like a little secret Santa, if you will, except not so secret and not Santa Claus. So here we are. So my thought process is that if you had another friend that you arranged, and this could, you'd probably choose like a close friend, and every Sunday, let's say, even if it was once a week, you either hop on a call with that person on Zoom or you make a video message and send it to them. But you give them encouraging words. You tell them what you love about them. You tell them what you appreciate, what you think is fantastic, or you just tell them a stupid joke to make them laugh. But essentially, your job is to remind them that they're seen and that they're loved and put a smile on their face and send them into the week. Because sometimes that's the biggest thing is like, Chrissy, you want to be mine?
Yeah, I love this. I'm so on board. Oh my God, the dancing videos you're going to get.
So choose one friend, and you could even, and you might need to say, okay, on Wednesdays we do, so Sunday nights, encouraging video or encouraging Zoom call, and Wednesday mornings. And again, it can be super, super quick because the mornings can get crazy, or you do it in the evening and you have like a 10-15 minute time limit. So, can't go past but you schedule it and you check in on each other. You good? Yeah. You good? Not so much. Do you want to talk about it? No. Okay. I love you. Call me when you do. Or do you want to talk about it? Yes. Okay. We'll make another, however long it'll be, but you're checking in, because sometimes we don't necessarily make the call when we should, or sometimes we don't want to bother people. So if you're proactive about checking in, it's a buddy system. Check in, feel good, buddy system. That's my maintenance.
Oh, it's like why, like you wouldn't put your sissy bar and not secure it.
Yep.
You'd strap that shit in. That's what that is.
Yep. You'd fill up their saddlebags and you'd make sure the sissy bar is strong and holding on.
It's amazing. Lori, do you have a quote for today?
Yeah, my girl Brene Brown, I'm going to quote her.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. The energy, I can't say it for serious now. Connection, the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. Connection.
Love it. Also love that it included the word sustenance. That reminds me of our plant analogy. Plants need sustenance, so do your connections.
Well played, man.
So I'm pulling one of those little quotes where I don't know who wrote it, but here we are, and I'll do some further investigating. Notice the people who are happy for your happiness and sad for your sadness. They are the ones who deserve special places in your heart.
Yes. Oh my God, do I love that. Well, that's your motivation. That is your motivation.
You've just listened to the Motivation Podcast with your host, Chrissy Van, and me, Lori Joy Kingwell.
Thanks for joining us along the ride. We've got new episodes dropping every Monday, and we're all about community. So follow us on Instagram at Motivation Podcast and visit our website at themotivation.com.
And in the meantime, tanks full and full throttle.